newspaper write-up that he kindly prepared for us. And then there are please stay around. Thank you very much.
6 films, and they tend to be on the unsung heroes of architecture and design. So very
The skin of the building starts on the north side as my hand is like this. It comes around in a double curve, starts to flatten out, like watch my hand, and then by the time it gets around to this side, it's like this. In other words, it's reversed itself. So it moves from the fingers in and the palm out to the palm in and the fingers out. It goes like that.
And as he said, this thing grew out of the architecture, which is incredibly unusual for this kind of building. It's something very new. I wonder if it's going to lead to more.
And I said, oh, I know that. I said, I actually saw that team play, and then I named the stars of that team on this phone call, just like this. And they were so didn't want it. Mesa didn't want it. Chandler didn't want it. The Indian Reservation didn't want it. So we finally went to a no place called Glendale, Arizona, which is still a very much of a no place. On the computer screen. I cannot read a building on a computer screen. I have to go there. If life were only a computer screen and I sat in my house.
The essence of Norman's architecture is that design can make things work better. We'd forgotten that useful things could be this beautiful.
You're looking, okay, I haven't seen it all, but what I've seen, I think is excellent. I think it's a great theme. It's a very important theme, whether you interpret it as public space interpretation. I think it's excellent. I think David's done a great job.
There's a linking up of generations. There's this symbiotic conversation happening.
I think one of the things about modernism is whatever the materials are and the availabilities of materials and the techniques of the day are the ones to embrace.
It's not really about keeping it perfect. It's about letting life happen in it.
I think everybody appreciates that sense when you're standing in something that is beautiful and well thought out. Your life is better for that moment.
Making it just a poem, you know, like just fragments of voices and some music, and you know, there may be other, you know.
So I wanted this to be a bit more honest. I wanted ourselves to be a bit more honest about what I believe is fundamental, is what is the materiality of buildings and why do we materialize buildings in the way that we do. So Form Matters was really a question to myself and a sort of play on words, which was to say, you know, why are the buildings that form and why are they that material? So form and matter.
Yes, it is.
I think that in Florida, so you make this a real high point of strangeness, because the film that we just saw that you haven't seen, I think, it documents an earlier you, which is almost in the same way that you worked on your own project.
Well, I don't. Those sort of famous architects, or all architects, convivial atmosphere, and you sort of everyone's relaxed.
Zari kanusan din. Zari rom. Bandra misakno zitarnya antene zari.
In de jaren 90 hebben we bewust beleid gevoerd om in een heleboel nieuwe landen die we toen opnieuw erkenden, want die bestonden voor die tijd nog helemaal niet, om daar ambassades neer te zetten die een uitstraling van Nederland inhielden. En dat is dan meestal met Nederlandse architecten gegaan en die zijn er over het algemeen zeer goed in geslaagd om door middel van architectuur ook een stuk Nederland neer te zetten, wat over het algemeen zeer gewaardeerd wordt.
I'd like to call him sometimes the godfather of the movement, sometimes I call him the Elvis of the movement. He has really launched 1,000 ships when it comes to architecture and design film festivals. He created a forum for people from all over the world to gather and talk about these festivals.
Charm of you, the Elvis of architecture.
Elvis is in the building.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're going to have the end of an era of spectacular architecture.
These saguaros, although they're magnificent and look very rugged and well balanced, they're very fragile. Building up close to them is tricky. So we hand dug the footings and we purposefully elevated the buildings to allow water and animals to coexist here in a more fluent way. But also the elevation of the steel boxes helps to reinforce this concept of the single aperture view light experience. And so by elevating them, you're stepping up into an instrument that frames the experiences of these views in the light shows.
And these are my sketchbooks and my watercolor books, which are cataloged. I work on these every day, and inside I have the seminal sketches for every building I've ever done. And it's very important for me that I make these drawings every day in the morning, because as you know, the mind from waking up is got all the subjective links, and you don't have that at the end of the day. So these almost always are made, like, right first thing in the morning. The notion of water between, that wasn't realized. We ended up with grass between in the landscape. That's another thing altogether.
So good evening. In retrospect, you feel it's all covered? Are you happy?
In the lecture. It's much easier. It's very awkward to sit and watch.
I hated it, actually.
It's very painful.
First, I wish I worked out for 3 months before they filmed it.
then somehow a movie feels so boosterish, you know? Like you're trying to, it feels like you're trying to sell something, which is not the point. When you're making a lecture, or you're talking to a group of students, there's an audience. You always feel there's an audience, so you can engage the audience. You're standing there, and you can make remarks accordingly. With a movie, it's all canned. It's a canned thing. So, yeah, there needs, you know, I think it's a very difficult thing to do.
It's just a little awkward. I mean, it was fun, but what you don't realize is that Suzanne Stevens was next to us the whole time asking us questions. And I'm not going to stand there talking about the one ceiling being 10 foot and one being 9 foot and one being 8. It's just really dry stuff. But when you have an audience, you can see the faces and you can decide whether you're talking to the students or you're talking to the curators or the people who might hire you. You know, more interactive type of thing.
I never really left Vienna. For my entire life, I thought of the city as my shelter. This is why, after 30 years abroad, I returned to my native city. Between 1918 and 1938, the city of Vienna, with its innumerable theaters, cabarets, cafes, and concert halls, was a center of intellectual and cultural life.
Tell them about why you're doing what you've been doing.
Basically, the film is not mine. I'm not a filmmaker. I'm an architect. The film that you're about to see, called The Bruin Effect, is about Victor Bruin's life and his invention of the shopping mall and how it broke his heart, how the way it became a commodified. There are lots of people in the film, and everybody's, you know, there's lots of information in the film. I can also say Annette's husband, Pat, is a music writer, and he scored the film, and the soundtrack's really great. So I happen to be I'm an architect. I'm represented in I'm part of the U.S. Pavilion team, so I happen to be here. So I'm lucky to be able to like let them know that it did actually screen, and that it has this logo underneath it, and we're very happy, we're very proud to be here.
From abandoned homes to
Are they still very neat? Do they just
We're finding that more and more people
Okay. When normally minimum 10 seconds. And we began to work all night, all day. But another sensation I felt during this moment is the fear that something terrible would happen.
Lo que pasó con Garati fue muy duro y muy justo.
And then you realize that you have been accused of something. And then you realize that you have been judged. And then you realize that you are guilty. And nobody tells you.
Professore, cominciamo dalla fine. L'ultima frase dice che nel 2009 c'è stato un altro stop alla ripresa dei lavori. A che punto siamo?
Siamo ancora lì, no, perché adesso però stiamo poco a poco uscendo, di nuovo ci sono delle possibilità, soprattutto con la partecipazione dei paesi latinoamericani, soprattutto col Brasile, e allora questo potrebbe dare un nuovo, probabilmente si sceglierà di montare anche su quello che ci film. Qui
è una storia di divenire, è una storia in divenire.
Sì, è una storia in divenire.
portato questo nostro piccolo contributo e averlo messo sui manifesti, scritto sui giornali e averlo portato.
È stato importantissimo.
Ed è stata l'America a portarlo, no? Perché il design Onscreen è arrivato è da Denver in Colorado, perché se no qui alla Biennale non eravamo riusciti in tutti questi anni a organizzare un film festival. Bisogna dare atto di questo, è un grande paese, ecco, perché riuscire a vincere questa sfida.
She made paintings out of what she was surrounded by. Everything she touched, she turned into something magical.
For them, these names like painter and architect, they weren't job descriptions. They were ways of looking at the world.
Modern design was born from the marriage of art and industry. The Eames office was born from the marriage of Ray Kaiser, a painter who rarely painted, and Charles Eames, an architecture school dropout who never got his license.
They give shape to America's 20th century.
And it all began with a chair.
Had they just designed the furniture, they'd be in the Pantheon. It's the multifaceted nature of the career that is extraordinary.
Anyway, and it's my opinion of the film, something that you quite often see in designer couples, but it's always different and it's always interesting to see
from Robin as well.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the impression, it was back in the 50s, and they touched on that subject.